to you.
Apologies, my lords. The improvement in our schools under the last Conservative government reflected a combination of high autonomy. We trusted our school and trust leaders to know the answers for their school and their community, but also high accountability so that the interests of children are protected and clear action is taken if a school is underperforming. And that action is led by our best school trusts. And that's why our international rankings in England in reading, maths and science have all risen, while in Labour-run Wales they have sunk. The government, it feels like these principles, which have driven success and opportunity for our children, are being eroded, and the changes being proposed to Ofsted inspections require further explanation. So I acknowledge that the government says that standards will rise as a result of the changes they're proposing, but school leaders and parents need to know how. So I'd like to ask the Noble Lady if she could explain what will actually be new on the new school report cards. There is an enormous amount of information, publicly available data on schools, and there's obviously a great deal of detail in the existing Ofsted reports. So what is the gap that the government has identified, or what's the problem the government's trying to solve? And what evidence does the Noble Lady have that the regional improvement teams that the government is proposing will be more effective than strong academy trusts in turning round underperforming schools? And finally, how will decisions on intervention in schools who are underperforming, how will those be taken between now and September 2025?
In response to the Noble Lady's first remarks, I agree that teachers and school leaders deserve enormous congratulation for the improvements that they've made in schools. And this government is committed to supporting them to achieve even higher standards for all our pupils. The announcement, of course, that the government has made alongside Ofsted is the removal of the single headline grade for Ofsted inspections, something that provided a relatively low level of information, but of course had enormously high stakes for schools. In doing that, we are absolutely committed to ensuring that parents have the information that they need to be able to make decisions for their children, and that schools have the information to enable them to improve. That's why we will work with schools, with parents, with young people themselves, and Ofsted will lead this to help to develop the report cards that will provide more useful information. The Noble Lady is particularly interested in the impacts on intervention, understandably. To be absolutely clear, where Ofsted identifies for a school that there are concerns, serious concerns, the current situation whereby the Secretary of State could ensure that a maintained school became an academy, or that a failing academy was forced to become part of an academy trust, remain. There is no change to those. But where actually schools could benefit from improvement, the development of regional improvement teams as apart from an early structural intervention in the management of schools, I think gives us an additional way in which to promote improvement in our schools and to make sure that all children, wherever they're learning, are gaining the highest standards, and the schools are being held to account for delivering those.
From these benches, we welcome the changes to Ofsted inspections, and we applaud the government for the speedy way they have acted. Following the tragic suicide of Mrs. Perry, you'll recall that the review of what happened found that Ofsted had acted in a defensive and complacent way rather than reflective and self-critical. And I think for us, school improvement is not about wielding a big stick. It's about collaboration, it's about support, it's about valuing, it's about helping schools to get better. I'd like to ask the Minister, during an inspection, how does she see the well-being and mental support of those staff during the inspection being provided?
The Noble Lord is right to outline the comments made by the coroner in the case of the tragic death of Ruth Perry, and also, of course, by the Education Select Committee in another place about the impact of the single headline grade in those particular circumstances. That's part of the reason for the government's decision to remove that single headline grade whilst maintaining a wealth of information from the Ofsted inspection in the report card that is being developed. Let me be completely frank with the Noble Lord. I think, having been on the receiving end both in schools and in children's social care of an Ofsted inspection, Ofsted inspections will always bring pressure onto schools and other settings, and so should they. The point is whether or not they are bringing pressure to good effect or not. And Ofsted, during the course of their Big Listen process, have also had the opportunity to consider the way in which to maintain that rigorous inspection and accountability process, but to do that in a way, as the Noble Lord says, that focuses, yes, on accountability, but also on improvement, and doesn't bring undue stress onto schools and head teachers.
My Lords, does the Noble Lady, the Minister, agree with me that actually there is considerable good practice available internationally about how best to inspect but also evaluate schools, and there is enormous understanding within the profession about how best to improve our schools? And on that basis, I would like to congratulate my government on making this decision, this early decision. And in response to the question from the Noble Lady opposite, what is the question we're trying to answer, that the government is trying to answer with this? I think they're trying to answer that question of unrealistic, unreasonable pressure on individuals in schools from that headline judgment. And I think that if it did nothing else other than prevent any head teacher ever again taking their life, it would be absolutely worth doing. But I know, from having been a teacher myself, that all teachers welcome engagement with those authorities who seek to assist them to improve in their practice. And I'm absolutely confident, and I hope the Noble Lady agrees with me, that actually a move towards a balanced scorecard, engaging the profession, looking at best practice internationally, is absolutely the way to ensure that we have increasing, self-improving schools for all our young people.
I very strongly agree with my noble friend, particularly on the point about how very good existing school leaders can support school improvement more widely. And, of course, the point about learning from international experience, which I know Ofsted, in their consideration of the education inspection framework's improvement, will be reflecting on, as will the government. One of the reasons, of course, for saying that it is a good idea to introduce the regional improvement teams in the way in which the government is suggesting is because that exactly enables us to build on the expertise of those leaders in academies and in other schools to support those schools who need to improve to be able to do that. In some cases, it will be necessary to change the management arrangements of schools. But short of that, there is much that can be done to bring good practice to bear on those schools that need improvement, and we should make use of that capacity across the system.
I just agree that sometimes too much information makes it very difficult for people to understand what the situation is. Now, I'm not particularly one way or the other about a single word, but I do think it's very important for parents to see in very short terms what it is that really they can help with. And I have to say to the last questioner that I don't believe that all teachers are always happy about a pressure to improve the circumstances. Can she assure me that they will now be written in such a way at least that there are a couple of lines which emphasise the things that need to be done? Otherwise I fear we'll be messed up by too many words.
The noble lord is absolutely right, and members of this House understand the danger of being messed up by too many words, I suspect. This is the beginning of a process. So the removal of the single headline grade nevertheless leaves 4 subheadings in the important areas of quality of education, behaviour, personal development and leadership and management. And the process for developing the single report card will, as he rightly argues, involve parents alongside teachers and others in determining what the information that they really need has to be and how it is presented in a way that is digestible and understandable. And yes, I can assure the noble lord that this will also, as will Ofsted's broader reports, include areas where the school needs to improve so that everybody can be clear about what needs to happen and there is that maintained accountability for schools to continue improving.